Toyota rounded off the 2023 WEC season in dominant fashion, as the 8 crew of Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley and Ryo Hirakawa won the 8 Hours of Bahrain and with it the 2023 World Championship. Contact between Mike Conway and Earl Bamber at turn 1 caused some early chaos, but from then onwards it was a very clean race with no safety car interruptions. Conway carved his way back through the hypercar field, but there was no catching the 8, and once he was back up to second it was the fight for third between Ferrari and Hertz Team Jota which took centre stage, the 50 eventually coming out on top. Toyota were again the ones to beat this weekend, and the 8 car didn't put a foot wrong to take victory, whilst the 7 recovered from its lap 1 scare to take a quiet second place. It's a shame the lap 1 contact robbed us of what would have been a close fight for the win, as the 2 cars circulated at a similar pace for most of the race. Toyota are the benchmark that everyone now has to catch up to over the off-season, and I'm not just speaking about praying for a BOP break. They've made the least mistakes of everyone this year, been the best on their tyres, consistently strong on strategy, all powered by 6 of the best sports car drivers in the world. If it wasn't for the 7 getting wiped out in a slow zone at Le Mans, they probably would have slept the season, and deservingly so. Ferrari AF Corsa were lucky to come away with a podium this weekend after things very nearly spilt out of control between their cars after the 6th round of stops, when Antonio Fuoco made a bold move on Alessandro Piaguidi, whilst Ale was on cold tyres. Late issues then saw the 51 fall back to 6th, whilst Fuoco held on for what was Ferrari's 6th podium of the season. The gap between the 2 cars also meant that the 50 crew jumped the 51 for 3rd in the final championship standings. They weren't the favourites for a podium after practice, but Ferrari were able to find the race pace to be a contender, and thanks to Robert Schwartzman they also topped the rookie test, which took place the day after the race. Well, kinda. Will Stevens was quickest, but he isn't exactly a rookie, so I'm giving Schwartzman the plaudits as the quickest actual rookie. Hertz Team Jota were the 3rd quickest car this weekend, but were unable to finish on the podium after Antonio Felix da Costa was handed a harsh drive-through penalty for an unsafe rejoin at turn 1. They bolted from 9th to 5th on the opening lap, and Stevens quickly made that 4th before engaging in a thrilling battle with Ferrari which went on for hours, Jota rarely more than a few seconds from at least one of the red cars. They'd finally broken clear before Da Costa's penalty, which plunged them back in the fight, and despite closing in, Stevens wasn't able to make the catch for 3rd. It was a great way for Jota to end the year, showing a lot of promise ahead of 2024, and it's a shame what has proven to be a strong combination will be broken up after Porsche blocked Da Costa from returning next season. For several reasons, a very poor decision in my opinion, that might bite them in the long term. Speaking of Porsche Penske Motorsport can be disappointed with this weekend, as they didn't capitalise on a car which had the pace for the podium. The number 6 had to take avoiding action on lap 1, and had it not had to it may well have found itself in 3rd instead of 5th. The sister 5 car had a much quieter affair, coming home a lonely 7th, as Porsche Penske were beaten by a customer in WEC competition for the first time. Peugeot Total Energies were again off the pace this weekend, but a reliable run saw them make the most of a bad situation and bring it home in 8th and 9th. The 9X8 clearly needs an overhaul over the off-season, which can hopefully convert a car which was competitive at Le Mans and Monza into an all-round threat. Proton Competition were in the fight for 7th for much of the race, before a couple of issues late on saw them have to make a longer stop and an extra stop, dropping them down to 10th. Cadillac Racing had a disastrous race. Bamber was handed a stop-go after triggering the Turn 1 incident, but based off all expectations should have then begun a comeback drive. Instead, the Cadillac couldn't, slowly falling off the back of the hypercar pack before the time losses became ever increasing. Cadillac will be the happiest team to see the off-season, with just 2 points scored across the last 3 races, after being third in the championship following their Le Mans podium in June. And last but not least, Floyd Vanwall had another race to forget. They started with a drive-through looming over them after a free practice infringement, got spun around on the opening lap, and then put together a solid run before needing a couple of trips to the garage. It's a third race finish in a row, but again one outside of the points-paying places. In LMP2, Team WRT took a 1-2 finish with Rui Andrade, Louis Delatraz and Robert Kubica winning the race, and with it the championship. It was an attritional affair, which kicked off early when 3 of the top 4 on the grid got involved in incidents on lap 1. An excellent stint by Gabby Aubry gave Vector Sport the early lead, until a stop-go from minimum tyre pressures breach. And a great comeback drive by United's 23 was then halted by the same offence, and it looked like WRT's 31 would take the win, until a slow final stop for them fall to second. Jota ended up third, with Prema Racing putting their most competitive run together in a while, to come home 4th and 5th, and it could have been so much more had the 63 not been losing time at every pit stop with a minor issue. And in the final LMGTE race, history was made as the Iron Dames took their first WEC win for an all-female crew. Sarah Bovey, Rahel Fry and Michelle Gatting, quite rightly the biggest story to come out of Saturday. Iron Lynx led the race for the opening 5.5 hours, before withdrawing from a 1-lap lead as Claudio Schiavone was too ill to drive, and therefore meet his minimum drive time. This gave the Dames the lead, and Gatting held off a late charge by Casper Stevenson in the D-Station Aston for victory. It was still a great performance by D-Station and WEC debutant Liam Talbot, finishing second after their best result so far this year was 10th. Northwest AMR rounded out the podium, with a special mention deserved for Christian Reed, who made his 85th and final WEC start aboard the 77, and also the ORT by TF crew, who had an engine failure in the final hour cost them a podium. I'll have a full season review at a later date, but I enjoyed the 8 hours of Bahrain, as I did every race of this year. Toyota may have been in control, but that's just proven to the world it was more than a lack of big budget competition which netted them 5 Le Mans wins on the bounce. I hope the competition are closer next year, but I hope that's down to them improving even more. Honestly, if you check the progress from Sebring to Bahrain, Toyota's advantage has more than halved already. What were your thoughts on the 8 hours of Bahrain? Please let me know in the comments below. And whilst you're down there, why not press that like button and subscribe to the channel? It really helps me out.